Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving weekend. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, I give my reactions to Week 10 in the CFL. A very exciting week. We got 5 games to talk about. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the show, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. It really helps me out, helps me grow the channel, so I really appreciate it. But with that said, let's just get into talking about these 5 games this week. Starting with the game that was on Wednesday, so I got to think a little bit farther back here because we saw these two teams play twice this week between the Toronto Argonauts and the Ottawa Redblacks, and this game was all about turnovers. 3 turnovers that the Argos forced in the second half really turned around this game. They had a 27-point third quarter, and that's really all I have to say. I think Ottawa did not play that poorly in this game. It was just the poor decisions in the second half by Caleb Evans that really swung this game. But they're really fighting for their head coach, Paul LaPolice, as we will also talk about in the second game they played this week against Montreal Alouettes. But I think Ottawa, they're playing as hard as they can. They're just not that talented offensively. Defensively, they're still making mistakes, but I think that you're starting to see the bright spots show up there. And for Toronto, they did not play very well offensively in this game, especially through the air. McLeod Bethel-Thompson did not have his best day against the Ottawa Redblacks. And I think that, like I said, it's just the turnovers made the big difference here. And that's really all I have to say about this game. That's really what it is. And I think that Toronto defense being very opportunistic. Dexter McCoyle, middle linebacker, been a great addition coming back to the CFL this season. And that's what I have to say about that game. And then the next game, Winnipeg against Edmonton, 30-3 in favor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And what do you say about the Elks at this point? They're a dysfunctional mess, and I'm starting to really disagree with what they're doing and how they're handling this quarterback situation. I mean, say what you want about Trevor Harris. He hasn't played very well this year. But this guy has proven a lot at the CFL level, and honestly, you have a guy that in Jamie Elizondo who has had a long history with him and is basically just throwing him under the bus here and basically trying to make him the scapegoat. That's what you call it, right? The scapegoat for this mess that's happening here in Edmonton. And I don't agree with that because I think a lot of this is coaching. I think a lot of this is upper management, creating all of these rifts in the locker room. You talk about the Derek Dennis situation before the season even started. I thought Derek Dennis was going to be a great addition for this team at that left tackle spot. He never plays for the team. You got the Sean Lemon release before the season started, a key guy that has over 100 sacks in the CFL. I mean, the dysfunction started so early on this season, and now they're starting to take it out on a guy like Trevor Harris, who, I mean, say what you want about him, but he's always been a pretty class act in the CFL, and I don't know, there's just so much talent on this team, but it's just not being showcased this season, and I think a lot of it has to do with when you look at them play, I haven't seen a team as disorganized as the Edmonton Elks. It's like, when they get to the line of scrimmage on offense, which is supposed to be Jamie Elizondo's specialty as an offensive coordinator coming from before he was a head coach. That's what he's supposed to be good at. And you look at this team, they don't know what they're doing. There's confusion before the snap. And I don't know, man. It's just, that's all I have to say about the Elks at this point. They're disorganized, and it's starting to look more of like a coaching management issue rather than a team talent issue, which I always thought I leaned towards thinking that way, but I really think that now. I think this team has just been poorly mismanaged. And by the way, Trevor Harris, if he's not the starting quarterback for the Elks next year, he'll be starting for some other team in the CFL. I have no doubt in my mind. And then for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I mean, what can you say? They're just dominating their opponents week in, week out. They're the most complete team in football. I mean, I say the same thing about them every week. But Zach Collaros, he's really your MOP right now. He would really have to struggle down the stretch, and they would probably have to start losing some games for him to fall out of that favorite spot for the MOP award. So, and then Andrew Harris at the running back position finally had his first 100-yard game of the season. We've been waiting for this, and I mean, when he gets going, it's going to be really, really tough to stop this Winnipeg Blue Bombers offense. And, I mean, if you can even score on their defense. But you can't score on this defense, apparently, because they've only given up 6 points in the fourth quarter all season, which is just an incredible stat. And they play Edmonton again next week, so we'll see how that goes. Again, probably another blowout, but we'll see. I think they're going to be starting Taylor Cornelius. They say that they're not going to be starting Trevor Harris. They've already been very clear about that, so we'll see how it goes. I don't like Edmonton's chances to even keeping that close, and I feel pretty ashamed that I even picked Edmonton to cover the spread this week. The Saturday game, Calgary and Saskatchewan, great game. Came down right down to the wire, and Saskatchewan's got on a bit of a skid here. 4 of their last 5 games they've lost now, and honestly, I think that we're starting to see that Cody Fajardo's having that little bit of that sophomore slump here. I think he will obviously rebound. I think he has the talent, and I think he's probably the most talented physically quarterback in the entire CFL, in my opinion. But he's just not right now. He's not hitting the deep ball consistently. He's really overthrowing a lot of receivers, and like they just have no flow on offense. I think a lot of that gets solved when Shaq Evans gets back, because he really gives that deep element, and they have that great timing together. And I think that's going to be a key for them the rest of the season. But I mean, if they don't get their act together now, they're only 1 game up on Calgary, and Calgary has the tiebreaker now, and that's it's getting dicey for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They have to find a way to win some more games down the stretch here, and I'm trying to think if they even play. I think there are only 3 games in the CFL next week, but I mean, it's almost a must-win to keep that record above Calgary, because Calgary and BC is also right on their tails as well. So going to be really, really key for Saskatchewan to get a win next week. And then for the Calgary Stampeders, man, what can you say? They've come back from the dead the last couple of weeks, had their backs up against the wall 2 weeks ago, and then they win back-to-back games against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I thought they were going to win last week. I did not think they were going to win this week, and they found a way to do it. And Bo Levi Mitchell, I think this was one of his better games this season. Still did not look like the old Bo Levi Mitchell, but I mean, he hit that great deep ball to begin the game, and that really was the catalyst for this defense that is playing really, really well right now. I think this secondary has played pretty well all year. Jameer Thurman looking really good in his return to the CFL this season at linebacker, and I think that's really the key. That's really become the key for the Calgary Stampeders this season, is on the defensive side. And I think they really need to ride Kadeem Carey more on the running back position, who's having a great season. He's just not having the carry usage that, pun intended, that we're used to seeing from elite running backs in the CFL. I think he's really become that this season. I think he leads the league in rushing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not that vulture Sean McGuire for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But honestly, I'm just really, really impressed that Calgary was able to bounce back these last couple of weeks, and now they play BC. And this, if they win this game, I mean, they're probably going to finish second in the West. Honestly, I think they're just on a roll. They went through a big skid in their schedule early on, and I think if Bo Levi Mitchell continues to get healthier and look better as the weeks goes on, I think ultimately they're going to find their way into the playoffs again, and we could see them as the dangerous team and the biggest threat to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers come playoff time. And then the Thanksgiving Monday games, Montreal and Ottawa. So Ottawa's second game of the week. They looked very flat the first 5 plays of this game. I actually tweeted out this is probably the 5 worst plays I've seen in succession to begin a CFL game. They gave up 2 sacks on their first 2 plays from scrimmage. They gave up a deep pass on their first defensive play from scrimmage, then a big run, and then a touchdown where nobody even attempted to guard Jake Weineke. And oh my goodness, it was a poor start for the Ottawa Redblacks, but they hung in there. I was really, really impressed with this team, that they were able to basically shut the door the rest of the game on this team. And I think for the Redblacks, it's all about growing every week. I don't think they have even a shot at making the playoffs, personally. I think they're pretty much done. I think it's all about building for the rest of this season and getting all these young players like Caleb Evans at quarterback as many reps as we possibly can. And I think Caleb Evans obviously didn't have his best day today, but I think that they should continue to start him because he's shown way more than their other quarterback options that they've put out there this season. And I think offensively, they just got to continue to grow. And defensively, they're finally starting to show some life, honestly, that I haven't seen since the first couple of weeks of the season. And for the Montreal Alouettes, there's really only one takeaway for this game, and that's the health of Vernon Adams, who reportedly is going to miss multiple weeks with his injury. And honestly, I didn't get to see the injury because I was actually at the Tiger Cats Argos game and I was on my way there, so I missed the end of this game. But if Vernon Adams isn't healthy for a couple of weeks and he misses significant time here, I really don't like Montreal's chances of beating most teams in the league. Say what you want about his performance this year, but he's a playmaker. He's a guy that is going to scramble around, create big plays, and he's going to make his fair share of mistakes. He's not the most accurate passer in the world, but he's going to make plays. Ultimately, he's a guy that you want late in games that is going to support your offensive line that doesn't have to play their best when Vernon Adams is back there. And now Matthew Schultz, a guy that's been the backup for a few years now, is going to get his crack at the starting job here. And I'm really interested to see what happens here when they play the Red Blacks next week. Can they find a way to stay afloat until Adams gets back here? And I'm really, really interested to see how that happens. And another thing I wanted to point out for Montreal is the presence of Almondo Sewell in this game. He was all over the field. Even if he's not putting up the big numbers, he's a guy that really pushes the pocket, and he's made a huge difference to this Montreal defense this year, especially in this bad matchup for the Ottawa Red Blacks offensive line against this Alouettes defensive line. And Sewell's really been a great addition to that team, and I just wanted to point that out because I think that was one of the best free agent signings in the CFL this season, and that could be a big difference come playoff time for this team. Now let's talk about the big one. Toronto squeaking out a big victory over Hamilton on a last-second field goal. And Toronto did not play their best in this game, but they found a way, and I've been incredibly impressed by the fortitude of this team this season. I mean, like, starting different quarterbacks in and out of the lineup, Nick Arbuckle and McLeod Bethel-Thompson all year. But this team has shown a lot of solidarity. They've won big games with both of their quarterbacks. You think Nick Arbuckle played that game against Winnipeg that they won, and now they've beaten Hamilton twice, albeit one time right by a missed extra point. But honestly, Toronto, a lot of mental fortitude on this team. I think that this receiving core has looked great all year. Curly Gittens Jr. really starting to break out as a great Canadian option in this receiving core. But you got other veteran guys like Ricky Collins Jr. and Tavares Daniel with an incredible catch in this game. That was really the turning point in this game. It was like, well, I was at the game, it's like the energy just went out of that building when Tavares Daniel made that incredible touchdown catch. Maybe catch of the year, in my opinion. And honestly, Toronto, a lot of fortitude. They found a way. They had a 3rd and 6, one play basically to get them into field goal range. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he was money. And man, what a performance by the Argos to win this game despite not playing their best. And then for the Tiger Cats, honestly, just so disappointing that they're unable to close these really tight games late in the fourth quarter. They've been so close to putting together a massive winning streak through this stretch of the season. You think about the 2 losses they had against Toronto and then last week against Montreal, easily winnable games, and they just haven't been able to close them out. And now they find themselves in 3rd in the East now, behind Montreal, because Montreal has played one less game, and Hamilton's going to be on the bye next week, hoping that Montreal drops a game. But I just don't know how to feel about this team. Jeremiah Masoli had his best game of the season, statistically, in this one. But Masoli, I think the key in this game and why Hamilton ultimately did not come away with the victory is that they had to settle for the field goal in the last minute that gave Toronto a chance to only go down and get a field goal to win the game. If they forced Toronto to score a touchdown, I don't think Toronto walks out there with a victory, but they weren't able to punch it in and put it in the end zone, and ultimately that was a big difference in this game. And that's really what the Tiger Cats, it's going to come down to the rest of the season. Can they find a way to win these late games? And now they're probably, if they want to get a shot at first in the East this year, they have to win that game at Toronto later this season to even up the season series. It's possible. These two teams are incredibly close, but the Argos just showing a lot more mental fortitude, like I said, late in these games. And honestly, the Tiger Cats, it's incredibly disappointing the last couple weeks. So I think they just need to start getting together, and they'd really need to dig deep in these late game situations and stay composed. But with that said, that is going to be the end of today's video, and I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the show, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Ussie's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I greatly appreciate it. And with that said, be sure to let me know in the comment section what you think about this week's action. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.